Good. Yes. Okay, we will call the November 27th, 2023 Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Supervisor Lewis.
Present.
Supervisor Day.
Here.
Supervisor Ayers.
Here.
Supervisor Lyons. Here. And Supervisor McDaniel is present as well. We will now have a prayer for the board followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Those attending are not required to participate, but if you'd like to join us, please stand.
Lord, we give you thanks for this joyous season, a time of remembering the blessings that we have received. Many times we take such things for granted, such as the clean air that we breathe. Sometimes we need reminders to make us realize and appreciate all that you have given us. And now, Lord, I ask that you will guide us during this meeting and the days ahead, that what we do are pleasing to you. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will hold citizen comments near the beginning of the meeting. We will do our best to take citizens' comments remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer a comment. To join by telephone, you may dial into the number listed on the county website. The webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will use the raise your hand feature. You can press the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you're calling in by telephone. All right, changes to the agenda. It's not a change to the published agenda, but I did want to make everybody aware. I requested a little reorganization of the agenda to move some of the business items near the beginning of the meeting. So if you see a change, that's why. Are there any other changes to the agenda?
No, sir.
Okay. Any recognitions or presentations?
No, sir.
I know we don't have any, but I would like to offer recognition to our county fire chief and the county fire and rescue departments and the forestry department and all who served to battle the Matts Creek fire that we had. Quite an incident and a lot of manpower, a lot of resources brought into the area, and I'm appreciative of all that they did. Hopefully at a upcoming meeting, we can have that recognition for those.
We certainly will.
All right, at this time, we will have citizen comments. Is there anyone signed up wishing to address the board? Okay. Is there anyone online wishing to address the board?
Yes.
Please state your name, magisterial district, and please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes.
My name is Susan M. Wood. I live in Glasgow.
Just a second. Hold on just a second. Let me see if we can get you turned up.
Can you hear me?
Wait just 1 second, Ms. Wood.
Okay.
Let's try that now.
Okay. I'm not sure if I need to make a comment now or if I need to wait until you talk about the solar farm.
If you will take citizen comments during that public forum, if you want to wait, or you can offer it now, whichever you prefer.
I'll wait.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else wishing to address the board online?
Ma'am, over there signing up, did you want to speak during the public hearing or have a general citizen comment?
Okay. Does anyone didn't have the opportunity to sign up for general comments? Okay. All right. Next up, we have the approval of the November 14th, 2023 minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review those, or any questions, concerns, comments? If not, is there a motion to approve? So moved. And a second?
Second?
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
And chair votes yes as well. Next up, we have the consideration of the county appropriation resolution. Mr. Harrison.
Yes, this is the second meeting, so this is the short version of the finance report. The requesting authorizations for the payment of bills in the amount of $211,688.43, and additional general fund appropriations of $11,076. And there are no school appropriations for this period. I want to point out I provide this information in the main report at the beginning of the month. But working with the finance committee, we'll continue to provide this information on year-to-date fiscal year sales, mills, lodging, and emissions taxes. But what you'll also see, and you saw that in a different spreadsheet, is tracking that on a year-over-year basis, on a calendar year basis, so you can compare month to month. And that way, just provide you more information on where we're at relative to the past. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from Mr. Harrison?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to add, I appreciate that, Mr. Harrison, that update. Certainly as we're fixing to get ready to do budget again. And I think it highlights the board's direction of trying to reduce the pressure on real estate and personal property taxes as much as we can with transient revenues. And one of those would be the admissions tax there, which is year to date $300,000. So that's a significant savings to our citizens for personal property and real estate.
I had asked the finance committee to review the admissions tax because we had said we would do that on an annual basis. Is it the recommendation of the finance committee that we continue to track with that?
I can't speak for Dr. Lyons, but I think so. Yeah, he was on the phone and we got sort of at the end, but I believe
Absolutely.
that is
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Going back to the appropriation resolution, is there a motion to adopt?
So move.
And a second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And chair votes yes as well. There are, let's see here, 2 appointments listed on the agenda that we carried over to the December 11th agenda. These 2 items, I just wanted to give you a heads up. They're following the retirement of Mr. Sigler earlier this month. Mr. Sigler served both on the TAP board and the CSB and will need to be replaced. The term for the TAP board will expire March 21, 2026. And the term for the CSB will expire December 31st, 2023. Again, both appointments will be added to the December 11th or January 8th if needed agenda. Please direct your questions about those appointments to Mr. Suter. Next up, we have consideration of the Valley ASAP program resolution. Mr. Harrison?
Yes, thank you. The Valley ASAP, that stands for the Valley Alcohol Safety Action Program. And as you may know, that's the program that assists people who've been convicted of alcohol and drug-related driving offenses to be able to attend classes and stuff as a result of their licenses, so that they can keep their license. And if it's been suspended, they take classes and stuff. It's a 100% fee-driven program, but those fees have not kept up. The fees are capped by statute, and the fees just aren't enough to cover the program's cost. And Rockbridge County being the only locality to agree to contribute anything financially to it, without local support from each jurisdiction, there's no way for that to continue to be operational. And so the advisory board, I am the board's appointee, Commonwealth Attorney, Mr. Moon, and Sheriff Funkhauser are also on the board for Rockbridge County, just by virtue of their positions. And both us three and the whole advisory board voted to request the jurisdictions dissolve the advisory board. The state the state cannot formally operate the program if there's an advisory board in place. And so, though they have been, the people who they still continue to get their services, the judges have contact with all the state staff, and that's been going well, is my understanding. And so,
So services wouldn't be discontinued. It would just be managed by the state rather than locally.
by the advisory board, correct?
Would that mean that people have to travel to?
No,
to
so
get-
far they've been holding, that's a good question. So to date, everything's been managing well. It also gives us the opportunity, if this has to formally dissolve, if we want to consider joining a different region. If Rockbridge wants to look at joining either the central area or our neighbors to the south in one of those, we can't do that unless this one's dissolved with this region. If that becomes, and I know Mr. Moon has, I believe, already been looking at those type of options with some of his peers.
But services would stay local. That's my point. The classes would stay.
So far,
Okay.
that's correct. But without local contributions, there's no way these programs, I went to a regional or a statewide meeting. I've only been on the board for 11 months. But I did go to the region or the statewide, and the successful programs are those where the localities contribute in addition to the state fees. But again, Rockbridge County was the only one in this budget year to agree to financially support.
And no move for that to change in the next budget year.
Well, if we dissolve it, we wouldn't have a need
Yeah.
to fund it. It would be funded too.
Oh, no, I don't think there was any interest in the localities contributing. So this would just be the request is for the board to set a public hearing at your December 11th, 2023 board meeting, because it was done by ordinance, so it takes a public hearing to dissolve it by ordinance.
Is there any questions or comments from Mr. Harris? Is there a motion to set the public hearing for December 11th? So moved. And a second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And chair votes yes as well. Next up, we have consideration of request from the Upper James Resource Conservation and Development Council. Mr. Suter?
Yes, this item is a request from the Upper James River Resource and Development Council. The council was formed in 2007 and revised its bylaws in 2010. And I've attached those in your document on board docs. Per the letter, the purpose of the group is to initiate, develop, promote regional projects benefiting outdoor recreation, land conservation, water resources, environmental education, and public outreach in a sustainable way. And membership of that group includes cities and counties, planning district commissions, and soil and water conservation districts in the Upper James River watershed. And during the pandemic, participation slipped a little bit. The group met fairly rarely. And with the recent retirement of longtime President Genevieve Goss, the council is now in a position where it's trying to ascertain interest and continued participation. The purpose of the letter is to determine, number one, if the county still has interest in participation, and two, if so, who the board would like to appoint as its representative. And a little more information that was not listed in your board package. Though one thing I thought was important to note after I posted, the letter mentioned sponsorship. Even though the letter mentioned sponsorship, there is no funding request of the county, nor has there been in the past. It was just mentioned in the bylaws. So funding to support the program is approximately $13,000 per year. It fluctuates a little bit from a DEQ grant, and the fiscal agent is the Natural Bridge Soil and Water Conservation District. And this same message will be distributed to the other folks, or the other members, the ones that I mentioned, the counties and cities, et cetera. So, I support continued participation in the group. I think it's done some good things. Worked on the Upper James River Water Trail, that type of thing, and promotes education. And it's at no cost to the county, and about all we have to do is participate. If the board is amenable, it could just affirm continued participation. I could share that information. And then you'd have to think about appointing a representative. That wouldn't have to be tonight. But in order to get to the first step, if you wanted to continue participation, give you something to think about who you'd want to appoint. I know Gene, I've been a member, I've served on there. Gene Clark, some other folks in RAC have served.
Yeah, I definitely want to continue from my perspective. Do we have any sense of when the next meeting would be? I know it talks quarterly here with.
Yeah, I think it would be in the first quarter next year. They're going to be doing the same thing. Of course, there's so many of these groups that they need to go to. I've pretty much told them I think I could handle this without having somebody show up.
Yeah, I was just thinking about appointments. Could we add that to a future agenda maybe to see what interest could be shown?
Sure.
As treated like an appointment?
I believe it's like one member per, I should have just reread the bylaws, but I think it's one member per participating body. And then together that group then appoints some other folks.
So would our soil and water conservation also have an appointment?
Yes, sir.
Right. I was thinking
According
maybe
to the
one of them would
bylaws.
want to do it, but I don't do that.
According to the bylaws.
Yeah, the more representation we can have, the better, sure.
So is that a motion to continue participation?
It is.
And a second?
Second?
All right, Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
And Chair votes yes as well. I'm fine if we want to, list an appointment, in December. What I would ask is until we appoint someone, since Mr. Suter has previously served on that, if we would just allow him to continue to serve in a capacity to keep us updated. And then if we find an appointment, they can move into that transition. So would there be a motion to tentatively have Mr. Suter fill that role until we find someone?
Sure. Yes.
And a second?
Second.
All right. Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
And Chair votes yes as well. All right. We were at public hearings. We will take a short recess and reconvene at 6 o'clock. Are we good on IT? Are we good?
Yes.
Okay, we will now reconvene our meeting for the public hearings. Up first, we have public hearing for PFJ Southeast LLC. That's Pilot Flying J at 713 Oakland Circle, Racine, Virginia. Application to amend the conditions of the current special exception permit to expand the existing garage associated with the truck stop at the address already listed. Mr. Sladen?
Yes, bear with me here. That's showing up a little bit different than what it is on the screen, but I think that will work. As stated, PJF Southeast LLC has made an application to amend conditions of the current special exception permit to expand the existing garage known as Southern Tire Mark at Pilot Flying J, associated with the truck stop on the property. Property is identified as 711 and 713 Oakland Circle, Racine, Virginia, located on the west side of the intersection of Racine Road and Oakland Circle. Property is owned by PJF Southeast LLC, is further identified as tax map number 28-A-14C, and consists of 22.573 acres per tax records. The property is located in the general business zoning districts, that's the B1 zoning district, per section 605.03-18 of the land development regulations. Truck stops, truck terminals, and truck relay stations are used by special exception in the B1 zoning district. The existing special exception permit was approved by the Board of Supervisors on April 24th, 2017, and had associated conditions. The purpose of the pending application is to modify the conditions of the current special exception permit to provide for the addition of a fourth bay on the existing garage. The property is located, on November 8th, 2023, the Planning Commission held its public hearing and has a recommended approval of the special exception permit with the following conditions. Number one, in addition to the existing facilities, the proposed garage addition, overall parking plan, and traffic flow plan shall be developed in substantial compliance with the concept plans prepared by Kimley Horn titled Traffic Flow Plan and plan titled Overall Parking Plan, both dated October 4th, 2023. Number two, maintain the earthen berm and plantings along the perimeter of the existing parking lot. And number three, approval contingent upon VDOT, Virginia Department of Transportation, Public Service Authority, and Building Department. With that, Mr. Sean Doherty with Kimley Horn is an engineer on the project, and I'd like to turn the floor over to him with additional details on the project and share the site plan. And Sean, can you hear us?
I can. Thank you, Chris.
What I'll do is I have mine still in sharing screen mode. And what I can do is bring up any and all of them. We can start with, in fact, I think this, and yeah, I think this one. You can see our screen, correct?
I can. Yes, sir.
All right. So with that, if you would prefer to share your screen, if you have something different, but if you want to just keep with this one, that'd be fine too.
Yeah, no, I think this is perfect.
All right, turn the floor over to you.
Appreciate the setup there, and thanks for the introduction again. Good evening, staff and supervisors. My name is Sean Doherty, like Chris had mentioned, with Kimley Horn. I'm the civil engineer on record on behalf of Pilot and Southern Tire Mart. Not a whole lot really beyond what Chris had said here. Southern Tire Mart's excited to expand from the existing 3 bays that they have on site and expand over to a 4th bay just for additional service. As mentioned, there's not going to be hopefully a whole lot of site work involved with this. It's really just going to be a modification to the building on that eastern side, and then a little bit of a sanitary sewer relocation due to the increased footprint. There shouldn't be any impacts to the earthen berm that was mentioned and was discussed at the Planning Commission. And like I said, I'm really just here to answer any questions that you all have. I think this is a pretty straightforward plan that we have here, but appreciate the time and appreciate the consideration. I know Pilot and Southern Tire Mart are excited to get this project off the ground, and hopefully you all are too.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Board, do you have any questions for Mr. Slayton or Mr. Daughtry?
Dockery, where are you? Where
I'm
are
in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay, so you have been here to the site though.
Yes.
I'm not a big fan of conducting business this way, but I understand what has to be done. But I just, while I support the investment in the community, I just want to make sure you've seen it and understand, which I'm sure you have, as you said. But
Yes, sir. Understand. And I'm sorry that I can't be out there. I think logistically with the holiday and travel, it was a difficult trip for me to make, but I'm happy to come out and meet with everybody at the next meeting if that would help with anything. But yes, I've had eyes on the site, walked it, and feel comfortable about the design.
Any other questions or comments? All right, we will open the public hearing. Is there anyone signed up wishing to address the board?
There's no one signed up at this time.
Is there anyone online wishing to address the board on this particular issue?
No one has their hand raised.
Anyone present didn't have the opportunity to sign up? All right, we will close the public hearing. All right, board, any discussion?
I did have one question. Sorry, more for Mr. Slayton. I suppose one of the conditions is approval of the VDOT, which I certainly understand, and the Public Service Authority. What is the piece there they're approving? I guess I would.
We included VDOT. The only concerns when the original 2017, you may recall in 2017, they had significant modifications to the traffic flow. They created new entrants.
I'm sorry, I was asking about the Public Service Authority.
The Public Service Authority, they are relocating some service lines, internal service lines, and that was discussed at the Planning Commission. We added the PSA at that time.
Roger, thank you. Assumed that was the case, but just wanted to be sure.
Any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion
So moved.
to approve the
Approve,
special exception permit? And a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
And Chair votes yes as well. Next up, we have the Virginia Electric and Power Company doing business as Dominion Energy Virginia at 5,000 Dominion Boulevard in Glen Allen, Virginia. Application for a special exception permit for the storage of materials and equipment in Zone AE Hatch floodway of the special flood hazard area. The properties are located at the east side of River Road, Route 663. Mr. Slayton?
Yes, bear with me here. In fact, I will attempt to do this without the technology. As far as the GIS, if we have it, if we need it, we could certainly bring it up. This is somewhat unusual as far as the process goes. We obviously have 3 associated public hearings with the same project essentially tonight. The first one being the use of the floodway, second one being the public utility itself, and then the third being a heliport. They are 3 different applications. Staff felt it would be beneficial for all parties, if you will, to run these concurrently. They go hand in hand. They're all associated with the same project. I will have 3 different, for the record, I will have 3 different presentations, if you will, and then turn the floor over separately to representatives from Dominion Power. With that, Virginia, the first one is the use in the floodway. Virginia Electric and Power Company, DBA Dominion Power, has made an application for a special exception permit for the storage of materials and equipment in the Zone AE hatched. That's considered the floodway of the special flood hazard area. The property is located on the east side of River Road, approximately 1.58 miles west of the southern intersection of River Road and Glasgow Highway. Property is owned by Keith W. and Penny G. Holland and are further identified as tax map numbers 108-3-A, 108-3-B, and 98-16-1. For a total, all 3 of those tax parcel total acreage is 69.14 acres. The properties are located in the agricultural and general use districts and are within the flood hazard overlay district. That would be the FH1 overlay per section 608.11-2-6 of the regulations. Storage of materials and equipment in Zone AE hatched. Again, the floodway of the special flood hazard area is a use by special exceptions. Property is located in the Natural Bridge Magisterial District. On October 11th, 2023, the Planning Commission held its public hearing and has recommended approval of the special exception permit with the following conditions. Number one, substantial compliance with the site plan titled Temporary Heliport Landing Zone and Pole Assembly Area prepared by Stantec. Number two, compliance with the approved emergency plan dated October 11th, 2023. Number three, approval contingent upon final VDOT, erosion sediment control, and health department approvals. And number four, implementation of the project by October 15th, 2024, and project completion by April 15th, 2025. I will note that the plan, of course, prepared by Stantec as referenced, as well as the emergency management plan as referenced, or the conditions are both included in your package. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Ms. Lane Carr with Dominion Energy to review additional details on the project. I do have your presentation from, she has a presentation.
Pulling it up, we'll go ahead and get started in interest of time. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here. I'm Lane Carr. I'm a member of the permitting team with Dominion Energy's Electric Transmission Business Unit. Joining me is my colleague, Sarah Hackney, and on the phone, I've got members of our construction team and the project manager for this project who can help answer any questions you have, probably better than I can. But quickly, I know you've got the application materials in front of you. Just wanted to give a little background on why we are proposing this helicopter landing zone and temporary pole assembly and staging area. This project this project supports the Balcony Falls to Skimmer transmission line rebuild project. It's about 10 miles long. We have already secured 2 other special exception permits for the project, one to expand our existing Balcony Falls substation, and the other to rebuild the 3 or 4 transmission structures that are located in Rockbridge County. The reason we are pursuing this landing zone and pole staging as an assembly area is because 3.5 miles of this project goes through the Forest Service territory. We have been coordinating with them for 3 years. And to minimize the impacts of building heavy construction roads up the side of the mountain to reach our transmission line right of way, we are proposing flying about 20 structures in by helicopter where possible. What that does is it prevents the need to use concrete trucks and big tractor trailers traversing up the side of that mountain. We can use just track vehicles and construct much smaller width access roads up the side of the mountain. So it's really in a pursuit to be light on the land, which is what the Forest Service prefers. Speaking to Chris over the last few months, we are aware that because our proposed landing zone and pole staging area is in the flood zone, just prepared a few slides here to quickly go over. I did want to emphasize that the project's permanent equipment storage yard is located off-site near Waynesburg. We've got a big regional yard, so that's where the bulk of our materials will be staged. Temporary, this is just a temporary use we're proposing. We're looking to start in about a year, and we talked about those dates at our last public meeting. We would lay the anchor, we would anchor the timber mat. So we're not proposing to construct this staging area with a lot of gravel. It's going to be about 10 acres in size. We would bring in timber mats that prevents any heavy land disturbance, and that's what we're seeking as well. So we would lay those and anchor those a few weeks prior to the arrival of the poles, and then stage the poles and assemble them a few weeks prior to flying. Overall, flying would take about 1 month. It would be pretty consecutive during that 1 month. Like I said, continuous pole flying. I don't want to mess up yours. Use the mouse. Yeah, the next one is, that's fine. So this, yeah, that's perfect. That's all I need to show. This doesn't exactly portray what we would see at the proposed site, but this just an example of how we use timber mats in flooded areas. These timber mats are really expensive, and the last thing we want is for them to be able to float downstream. So we are very committed to anchoring those in place. This is just an example of what the transmission poles will look like. They'll come in different sections. We will assemble them into 3 different sections, and each one of these sections would be flown in by helicopter to the site. Again, we know that the evacuation plan is most important because we're located in the floodway district. We could enact hauling trucks and needed equipment to remove material out of the area as soon as we got the alert that those floodwaters were reaching the designated elevation. Anchoring structures is a second option, and then the smaller equipment can easily be forklifted onto a truck and removed. We will have a mobile self-contained tanker truck located on site to help refueling. That will easily be removed off site. The helicopter would likely be staged at this landing zone when it's not in flight and overnight, but we can implement a condition that the helicopter be staged off site if that is preferred. And just again, we're committed to the safety of property and life downstream. And then just quickly, this is a part of this application. It is in a conservation easement, this property. So we have met with Virginia Outdoors Foundation on site. We've submitted the application to them. They've provided conditional approval. The only thing they're waiting on is for the final lease to be signed with the landowner. And Dominion Energy is holding off on that until we can assure that we can secure all necessary permits. So that's all I had. I've got folks on the line. If you've got any questions, glad to answer.
Does the board have any questions? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, at this point, we will open up the public hearing. Has anyone signed up wishing to address the board?
No, sir, there's not.
Is anyone on the line wishing to address the board on this issue?
I don't see anybody.
All right, anyone present didn't have the opportunity to sign up? All right, we will close the public hearing. Any discussion by the board? My only question, Mr. Slayton, or for whoever, I noticed it had the dates of October of 24 through, I think it was April of 25. Was there, and I understand you have a time frame that you're working under, but I mean, why be restrictive with that? I mean,
The County Rockbridge land development regulations follow state law, and I believe it's the language is that it has to be implemented within 6 months of date of approval unless otherwise specified in the conditions, and therefore we took the opportunity to specify it in the conditions.
Okay.
And obviously worked with Ms. Carr and others at the time and gave a fairly large amount of flexibility with y'all's plans as well.
if for some reason the dates needed to be amended, it would have to come back before
It
us?
would, yes, sir. It would be the same process as we're going through this evening, yes. And that's why the planning commission worked with everyone at the time, before, during, and during, I should say, with giving some latitude there as well. Can't remember the exact date, but there was some latitude given.
October through April.
Do you feel that's adequate?
We do. Yes, I think originally we were talking a 2-month window or 2 to 3 months, and
I remember there was some discussion
Yes,
on just
yeah,
that.
just
but,
because
yeah.
you probably know construction projects, you never know what could happen from
Especially
now
during
until
winter
then.
and
So
stuff.
Remind me, the whole project is thought to, once you start, how long will that take, do you think?
we're finished with phase 1. So that goes all the way up through Bedford County. Now we're getting ready to start from Amherst through Rockbridge County. John Perry or Bob Humphreys, do you recall, can you help me with the start date and end date for the entire
I
rebuild?
guess what I
of
meant
this
is
phase?
how much of the 6-month window do you expect to use? Is it 2 months of the 6 month? Is that?
For flying the poles?
Well, I mean, you have a 6-month window to complete the project, is that
Right.
correct?
Yes,
So
to complete the flying of the poles, to complete the flying operation.
Okay, but
and
that
erect those
project,
few
that
structures.
part of it doesn't take 6 months, that takes,
It does not.
Just-
Once we start flying, probably about a month.
okay.
Yes.
So 6 months sounds like maybe that
Yes,
would give you plenty of window.
To give clarification there, the overall project will take approximately 2 years worth of time frame there. This component of flying the structures in would be confined to that 6-month time period there. It's a specific section there, particularly it involves the James River face and the Appalachian Trail crossing. There's some scenic and protected areas of the national forest, but the overall time frame will be a little bit larger for the project as an entirety there. We begin in Bedford County there this winter, early spring, and the will be in Amherst County until about September or so of 2024, when the other component, the aerial component of the project using the yard would start, after September there.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Any other questions? Comments? Is there a motion for approval?
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Ms. Ayers.
Yes.
Mr. Day. Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
And Chair votes yes as well. Next up, we have the second one for Virginia Electric Power. And this is a special exception permit to develop a transmission pole staging and assembly area. Property is located east side of the River Road, Route 663. Mr. Sladen?
And I do want to reemphasize there's three different applications because essentially three different uses. The first one was for the use in the floodway as a special exception. I won't go over the same information as far as the application by Dominion Energy Virginia. Same properties, east side of River Road, same properties owned by Keith and Penny G. Holland. The total is 69.14 acres. However, this part of the process, it pertains to the same properties, of course, are in the same zoning district, the A2 zoning district. However, in this case, per section 603.03-9 of the regulations, public utilities are used by special exception in the A2 zoning district. With that being said, the Planning Commission has held their public hearing and has recommended approval of the special on October. I will read this part. On October 11th, 2023, the Planning Commission held its public hearing and has recommended approval of special exception permit with the following conditions. I will note they're the same conditions as before, but for the record, substantial compliance with the site plan titled temporary helicopter landing zone and pole assembly area prepared by Stantec. Number two, compliance with the emergency management plan dated October 11th, 2023. Number three, approval contingent on final VDOT, erosion sediment control, and health department approvals. And fourth and final is implementation of the project by October 15th, 2024, and project completion by April 15th, 2025. With that, I'd like to turn the floor back over to Ms. Carr to add any details to this portion of the process.
So I really don't have anything additional to share, but glad to answer any questions.
Does the board have any questions? Thank you. So anyone signed, well, at this point, we vote on public hearings. Anyone signed up wishing to address the board?
There's no one physically signed up at this time.
Anyone online wishing to address the board?
See no hands raised.
Anyone present didn't have the opportunity to sign up? All right, we'll close the public hearing. Any discussion by the board? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve? A second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Ms. Ayers.
Yes.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. Day. And Chair votes yes as well. All right, next up, we have Virginia Electric Power, DBA Dominion Energy. This is a special exception permit to develop a private heliport. Same property. Mr.
Same
Slade?
property, same owners, same tax map number, same total acreage. With that, the property is located. The purpose of this process has to do with the heliport that obviously is going to be utilized to transport the poles. The property is located in the agricultural general use district A2 per section. In this case, per section 603.03-4 of the regulations, heliports are used by special exception in the A2 zoning district. With that, once again, I will turn the floor over to Ms. Carr.
Nothing additional to add, but glad to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions? Thank you very much. We will now open up the public hearing. Is anyone signed up wishing to address the board?
No, sir.
Is there anyone online wishing to address the board?
No, sir.
Anyone present didn't have the opportunity to sign up? All right, we will now close the public hearing. Any board discussion, questions, comments, anything?
I'd just like to thank Dominion Energy for maintaining the transmission network that we need, and appreciate the compromise that seemed to arise in traversing that terrain. Sounds like a win-win. So appreciate the work towards that. Imagine it may be a little more costly than Plan A, but I certainly appreciate that. With that, I'd make a motion to approve that as well.
All right, is there a second?
Second?
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Ms. Ayers.
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
And Chair votes yes as well. Next up, we have Hilltop Solar LLC, Environmental Resources Management, Inc. of East Main Street, Richmond, Virginia. Application for a special exception permit to develop a 3.00 megawatt solar project at 331 Lloyd Tolly Road, Natural Station, Virginia. Mr. Slayton?
Yes, sir. Yes, members of the board. USS Hilltop Solar LLC, care of Environmental Resources Management Incorporated, has made an application to permit and develop a 3.00 megawatt, that's AC solar project. The property is identified as 331 Lloyd Tolly Road, Natural Bridge Station, Virginia. 24579 is located on the west side of the intersection of Lloyd Tolly Road. Lloyd Tolly is further identified as 773, and Gilmer's Mill Road. Gilmer's Mill Road is further identified as 708. As of October 19th, 2023, the property is owned by Douglas E. Brawford, formerly, before that time, formerly of the Douglas E. and Joan E. Brawford trustees, same address as above. Further identified as tax map number 113-5-D, and consisting of 141.619 total acres per tax records. So to turn your attention to the GIS, the Brawford tract that we're dealing with this evening is outlined in blue here. And zooming down in, the magenta represents the magenta outline as shown on the screen, represents the approximate proposed fence line. Fenced-in area represents about 21 acres of the site. And then, of course, the access, proposed access is on Gilmore's Mill Road, as shown in gray. The portion of the property and portion of the property and the proposed solar array is located in the agricultural and general use districts, and the other portion is located in the agricultural transitional zoning district. With that, I'd like to turn that layer on. So you can see the pink on the map in this area is zoned agricultural transitional. That's the A2 zoning district. And then the white in this area is zoned agricultural and general use. Per section 603.03-9 of the regulations, public utilities are used by special exception in the A2, again in the white portion of the map, as shown on the screen. Per section 603B 03-14 of the regulations, public utilities are used by special exception in the AT zoning district. So not only the property, but also the project splits the two zoning districts. The proposed 3.00 megawatt, again, AC solar site is located on approximately 21 acres of the Brawford tract. The portion of the Brawford tract that is being proposed to be utilized for the solar facility is currently used for hay production and cattle grazing. On October 11th, 2023, the Planning Commission held its public hearing and recommended denial of the special exception permit. Based on discussions with individual members of the Board of Supervisors, staff has prepared a denial as recommended by the Planning Commission, but also as recommended, has also prepared a ordinance for approval with some draft associated conditions that we've talked out through the process. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Dan Sapler with USS Solar to review a presentation that he's prepared. actually the scroll. It's the scroll on the mouse. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Slayton.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Good evening, board. My name is Dan Sapler. I'm here. I'm a project developer at US Solar. We're proposing a 3-megawatt solar facility on Mr. Bradford's property in Natural Grid Station. Is everyone more or less familiar with where this is? Awesome. Awesome. So yeah, to give you a little background on who we are, we're US Solar. We develop, construct, maintain small scale solar projects called community scale solar projects. We're based out of Minnesota, but we have offices in Arlington, Virginia, Boston, and have built and owned about 85 to 90 of these small scale solar facilities to date. I'm joined here with Justin On from ERM. They are the consultants that we have partnered with in order to develop the site plans and also develop some of the environmental due diligence and studies that go along with this project. So again, thank you, Mr. Slayton, for the presentation. I'll give you, a little more background on the site. We're proposing a 3-megawatt solar facility. I guess I can just kind of skip over this because Mr. Slayton was nice enough to do this, but I would like to point out that we are, taking up roughly 20.1 acres of a 141 acre parcel. So I believe the next slide is the site plan. So again, this solar facility will accumulate roughly 3 megawatts AC of electricity. We like to be as minimally invasive as possible. So the arrays are just simply pile driven into the ground. We use a gravel access road. And as you can see, the access road is going to come off of Gilmore's Mills Road and run directly up to the top there of the site plan to interconnect into Dominion's existing infrastructure. We like to use a farm-style cattle fencing to enclose the array with wooden posts. We think that meshes better well with the community. And the only grading that we would like to propose on the property is roughly 6% of it. The slope and terrain of the parcels roughly undulating. So we consulted with our racking manufacturer, and they identified only 6% of the proposed array's boundary to require grading. So did just want to gauge the board's interest with that.
Is that 6% grading, or is that 6% of the 20 acres?
That would be 6% of the 20 acres.
Just to understand, you're grading so that the racking, so that the tilt, describe why that's
Yeah,
necessary.
so our racking manufacturer has a certain slope of terrain threshold. That slope of terrain threshold for them to meet would require grading. So I believe off the top of my head, it was a 9 or 8.5% slope.
Okay, it's just about the tilt, getting the proper tilt. Okay.
Well, no, it's just for the pile driving.
Okay.
For, them to be able to,
all right,
to hold the array in place based off of the terrain of the slope.
Okay.
So,
all right.
And the only other point, so the arrays themselves will utilize a single axis tracking system. So they'll move throughout the day. They'll be, set towards the east in the morning and tilt towards the west at night. And that helps us maximize efficiency. And the construction phase for this will last roughly 4 to 6 months, but the bulk of the pile driving will last really roughly two weeks. Honestly, the bulk of the construction is essentially just tying into the grid and getting Dominion online with our electrical infrastructure, which.
Dan, sorry to interrupt, but if you could speak on the
I'm sorry.
microphone. Some people in the back are having a hard
Yes, sir.
time.
And one of the reasons that's short for this project is because of you don't have very much excavation.
Exactly. Yep.
And when you tie into the grid, are all these lines underground?
Yep. So we're gonna trench our line up to up to the northern part of the site plan, and then we have 3 riser poles. So the lines do need to come out of the ground to interconnect to Dominion's infrastructure, but we trench them throughout the entirety of the access road.
On your application, it mentioned on the decommissioning part that not all of those lines can come out. Can you describe the difference between what can be removed and what cannot be removed in the
Yeah, I mean,
decommissioning?
We're more than happy to work with you. We can essentially move. It's kind of a standard to just do. I believe the decommissioning plan said 2 feet below subsurface, but I mean, we're more than happy to work.
I think you'll have to talk louder or
Sorry.
down into the.
Yep. So,
There.
I believe the decommissioning plan, I would have to review it. Maybe Justin can opine here, but we're more than happy to work with the board here if you'd like to make a modification to the decommissioning plan to, require us to remove essentially everything below the subsurface. But the trenched wires, I believe, go about 2 feet below the surface. But if you would like to
I think
extend
it
that.
said anything under 3 feet would be left in place. But thank you.
Here. So we included the process timeline. I really don't think we all need to go over this. We did submit in July, and obviously, as the board is well aware, we were during the planning commission were offered a recommendation of denial, but it is our firm belief that there really wasn't much of a base to the denial. And then one of the points I would like to bring up, one of the main topics of conversation during the planning commission meeting was soil and soil types, and taking away productive soil types. And the sentiment during the meeting was that solar should not be sited on prime farmland. But I did just want to point out that none of this solar array will be sited on prime farmland. So ERM was nice enough to put together a soil map for us. So as you can see up there, there's no prime farmland on the premise. And as Mr. Slayton said, there are hay practices and grazing practices going on the site right now, and those practices will remain after the construction of the facility. So these things can live in harmony with.
How will it be maintained inside the fence?
Yep. So we'll send a operation and maintenance crew out every month to 2 months to clean off the panels. But we like to plant pollinator native habitats within there that don't really require much mowing. But we do send an operation and maintenance team again out there to make sure everything's clean, tidy, mowed if necessary.
Maintain the native plants and eliminate any invasives that come in.
Exactly.
The Russian olives you're going to need a little work on.
Noted.
Right.
Noted.
Okay. The excavation, back to the 6% of the excavation. I would assume that some of that topsoil would need to be moved. What would be the plan to maintain that on the site so it could be used in decommissioning?
Yeah, so we would just we would essentially excavate that soil and put it to lower areas. And I would have to get back to you about that.
But it would not be removed from
No,
the
it would not.
site?
It would stay on site.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I speak to a few more concerns while I have you up here
course,
that I heard? I listened to the planning commission and listened to people's concerns. Some of it is the reflective quality of the panels themselves and how you can. I would like for you to speak to that. Is there any sound, any sound light that emits from these? That could potentially disturb the neighbors?
So as far as reflection is concerned, these arrays are designed to absorb as much light as possible. So a good rule of thumb is that the arrays emit less of a glare than blades of grass. So again, they're just, and they are, laminated with a protective anti-glare coating. So, I really don't believe glare is going to be an issue. From a sound perspective, from the transformers, the typical sound level is roughly that of the hum of a library. So if you can hear the array, you are most likely trespassing. I strongly do not believe you'll be able to hear it from the fence line, from where the transformer pads are located, which is roughly central.
And lighting, there's no need.
There's no proposed lighting. And we do, from an operation and maintenance standpoint, if we do monitor the array from a production standpoint, and we'll get notified if a panel, breaks or is dysfunctional, we'll send an operation and maintenance crew out there within roughly 24 to 48 hours to repair it.
And what's the height of the panel?
Yep, so they'll be roughly 7 to 8 feet when they're tilted easterly or most westerly. And then at night, they're flat. One thing that's kind of cool, that the technology has come pretty far, and these will be bifacial panels. And at night, when the sun sets, the arrays can still accrue some radiant light and generate electricity, so they'll lay flat at night.
Runoff is something that everybody is very concerned with, and I see that there's a plan for that, right? For water, I believe. If we have let's say, what happens in rain? They automatically come up in a vertical position or not?
No.
Okay.
For any runoff questions, I would defer to Justin on this. He was going to come up and present on a few things. But
okay, that would be great. Yeah. I don't want to. You all have questions?
That's
Jump
so
in.
Yeah. So, Mr. Sapler, I
Yes.
received a letter that you forwarded Mr. Slayton. I found that pretty demeaning and offensive to me, lecturing me and then telling me what I must do. So we'll start with that. Next, what you're used the term pile driving. What exactly does that mean?
Yep. So
how does that happen?
An excavated pile driving. So these racking system.
Or let me shorten it. Would that be a press?
Yes.
Or a bang, bang, bang?
It would be a bang, bang.
Okay. What is your definition of community solar?
Yeah. So community solar is defined as essentially array. And I'll backtrack. I'm sorry about the letter. I did not mean for it to be.
The way I took it. But I think I may have a different definition of the community solar as well. So
yep. Sorry. So the community solar. Community solar is defined as solar that can be constructed and fed into a grid for those people that want to consume renewable electricity without having to put solar on their roofs.
But the people who are getting this electricity are not choosing this; they're just getting it because electrons just flow. So that they're not. No one's selecting, saying, "Hey, I want a piece of this."
So that's actually
would be
left
a
up to
true
Dominion.
community solar.
So that we entered into a power purchase agreement with Dominion, so they kind of handle all the ebbs and flows from there.
Yeah, and I guess maybe further dissecting the word community is our community here. So that that's got to be my perspective.
Okay.
And so I think some other energy companies have done solar projects where they solicit or ask folks in that community if they want to be a part of this. And there was another Dominion project a couple of years ago that was started down that path, but it didn't get there. So I was just trying to make sure I understood what you consider to be community solar.
It's community scale. Okay, that was a different.
Yeah,
it's what you meant. I got the
right.
impression
There's
that it was scaled
definitions,
for a
right.
small community, not for.
Right, and
that's what I
there are
understood.
there are different definitions around the nation. There are different states with solar programs. Dominion has one. It's called the Shared Solar Program. So, but to your point, utility scale is anything 5 megawatts or larger, and we are technically, quote unquote, the community scale, which is less than 5.
That's all I had at the moment. I've got a couple more things, but it's not the right time.
Any other questions from Mr. Chapman? And did you say that there was another gentleman?
There's yeah, Justin.
Hello. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Like Dan said, my name is Justin. I work with ERM. So I help support U.S. Solar with a bunch of different studies involving environmental and to assist the permitting process and whatnot. So the first one we have on the PowerPoint is a visual assessment survey. So this is basically, we have renderings of what the view shed from this particular location is going to look like with our landscape buffer plan in place. So the top one shows existing conditions, and this is from Gilmore Mill Road facing north to the proposed site location. So the first visual you see here is the existing conditions, and then the bottom portion you see right here is what is going to be planned in 15 years of growth. And all of this is going to be mature native vegetation. Any vegetation that's already in place will be kept in place, maintaining the idea of native vegetation to the area.
Even invasive plants that might already be there, you won't remove them?
No, we'll try to remove as invasive as possible, but the idea is to maintain as much native vegetation as possible.
Well, native and invasive are two different things.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I wouldn't want you to remove native plants, but if you have invasives that have crept in there, I wouldn't encourage you to keep them, allow them to continue to develop.
We'll keep the native vegetation in there, the existing vegetation in there, and in areas of gaps like this, screen the proposed project. So it looks something like this. This is another viewpoint. Excuse me, this is the same viewpoint, just a little zoomed in. So you see the existing condition up here, and then in 15 years growth, this is what it's planned to look like. Screening the proposed project from this viewpoint and preserving the natural vegetation. This is another viewpoint. So this is from this is looking west on Highway 130 and 708. You can see the church right here. Proposed projects up here. So this is what it's going to look like.
Can we see, that's the existing, that's what it looks like now, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have one where the panels are installed?
It's actually identified there on the right where the cursor is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir, you have to come to the mic to get on the.
So this is with them installed.
Yes. So as you can see here, where the cursor is, the visual representation, that's where the array is going to be, and you won't be able to see it with the existing.
From that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So we've developed some studies to kind of keep in mind the comprehensive plan. So for example, for strategy number 4, we preserved natural resources sites. We identified natural resources on the area, and within the site plan incorporated this into the site plan design. So we completed a wetland delineation for the site. The wetland delineation found that no aquatic resources are located within the site plan area. And this was completed in February of 2023. And we have sent it off to the Army Corps of Engineers to await approval for our site design. As Dan said before, we analyzed soil survey data and identified that prime farmland is not within the site plan area. We did identify farmland of statewide importance, but the site plan design will utilize methods to minimize impact as much as possible, including minimal grading, and utilizing best management practices to prevent erosion as applicable. The site plan does not plan on impacting trees at all in regards to threatened and endangered species identified on the site. So potential habitat, including mature trees and water resources, will not be impacted. Therefore, we will avoid impacts to T&E species. And strategy number 7 as well. So strategy number 7, we looked at public screening impacts, and we take that into account with the previous 2 slides, making sure we maintain the natural aspects and with native and mature vegetation. For strategy number 10, we consulted and analyzed with FEMA floodplain data readily available online with FEMA firm data, and determined that the site is outside of a 100-year flood zone of the James River. And in regards to strategy number 13, in regards to karst areas, the site plan incorporates the karst areas identified and avoids it with a 50-foot buffer. So site development activities will not occur and not be affected within this 50-foot buffer. Again, here's a summary of some of the points we take into account with the application. We are in compliance with these districts, as noted before. We have additional permitting and process, land disturbance process, right? Land disturbance permit in process, BDOT correspondence, and commercial entrance in progress. And we've done some additional design requests, including the relocation of the access drive, 50-foot buffer around karst features, a 50-foot screening along Gilmore Road, incorporated with the visual screening buffer. And we include some visual simulations for y'all, and some additional things, including decommissioning cost estimates, which we will revise in accordance to your comments.
Runoff, we were talking about the excavation of the 6 and the runoff plan. There was one, correct?
Yes.
The retention ponds, etc. Those things. Is there anything to be said there?
Yeah, so runoff is definitely a concern regarding solar farms with different solar farm projects and whatnot. So the way the site is graded, runoff will be captured by best management practices, including vegetation, matting during construction. Once construction is complete, vegetation will be grown to help stop the runoff. We also have a nutrient credit with in regards to the James River, but we are limiting that as much as possible.
Speak to that. What do you mean you have a nutrient credit?
So we have a nutrient variance limiting the amount of sediment that can go into the river, but we will prevent this with native baffles and water bars with runoff and things like that. But Dan can speak more on the design elements itself.
Right, because from our point of view, we want no water, no runoff any more than naturally.
Right, exactly.
Right. So
that can be designed with, the ultimate is vegetation, native vegetation popping up, preventing all the runoff coming off on this site with during construction will be matting and water bars and things like that, best management practices.
Was that in a document in our packet, Chris?
I'm sorry, I did not, I was chatting with Randy.
Talking about, Leslie's obviously concerned about stormwater management and
There's very little information on stormwater management that was included in the package, I believe.
that I'm just making sure I didn't miss something, and that's part of my other comments on some of this.
Well, I mean, the plan, where is the stormwater plan?
That any project this size is required to get any project this size is required to get a stormwater management plan and E&S plan from the Erosion Sediment Control Stormwater Management Office, which is the building department, under the umbrella of the building
That
department.
happened before approval here or after?
That would happen after approval, essentially.
So any concerns can be implemented into the plan itself.
But that's the first, not if we don't know what the plan is. So we can't have input into that because we don't know.
Well, it's our office, correct?
Yes, but like this, the site grading plan and the decommissioning plan, there's questions in there that, or that's, I feel like it's my job to review those and ask any questions I can or not. So
I can speak to that just a little bit. In other words, they don't want to go through the process of getting the engineered drawing if they're not going to get, if the project isn't going to move ahead.
I understand. But it's frustrating. That's why I said it's frustrating.
This would be stamped, reviewed, and inspected.
Okay. And with that being said, I'll turn it over to Dan, but any additional comments you may have, I can answer following Dan's comments.
Thank you, Chuck.
Yeah, that just about concludes our presentation, our point of the presentation, but I'm more than happy to answer any further questions that y'all may have.
Does the board have any questions?
No, maybe after.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe after the.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sam.
Well, stop sharing screen.
The board have any questions for Mr. Sladen?
I say more for Ms. Huffman, sort of a procedural question. The decommissioning plan that has been submitted for this application, right? Has that been, have we verified that the engineer has approved that? Maybe that's a
Chris
better
has
word.
verified that, yes.
We have since verified that since this morning.
Yes. And I can distribute now. We have this morning, we sent out a revised plan dated November 22nd, I believe it was, December 21st or December 22nd, decommissioning plan. Since that time, since the email to the Board of Supervisors this morning, we have a revised decommissioning plan that essentially is the verbatim, the exact same plan, but the updates include that a statement that the plan has been prepared by a professional engineer. It also has the inflation factor set in there, and then verifies that no salvage value will be given as credit as far as the decommissioning plan.
And I appreciate that, but I've had other commitments today and haven't had a chance to review that.
Sure.
So I guess now I'm back to what I was really trying to ask Ms. Hufford is, I mean, what chance do I get to do that? Do I get more time? Is that because it's now here? Is that what I've got to work with in 30 minutes or?
Well, you have the ability to set this matter over for a period of time if you need to review additional materials. I mean, obviously, this just came in very recently.
That's sort of my thought. Yes, ma'am. All right, you're heading
So
down the path
you
I was
have
trying
the
to get to.
ability to set over 30 days upon completion of the public hearing, or you can continue the public hearing to the next meeting, and then if it's closed at that time, have 30 days from that point to take action on the application.
Yeah, my concern is just getting it all out there. That the grading plan also, unfortunately, due to some technical issues, I wasn't able to magnify it enough to be able to really get that until we were able to ameliorate that today also. And those two things to me are critical to the project. And And unfortunately, we have heard the terms minimal grading and that before, and then something much different has happened. So I really feel that that's an important issue for me just to have reviewed and understand exactly what's supposed to happen, because as that goes in as a condition, that's where we're able to work with the developer thereafter. If we don't have it in there, then we don't have the ability to see that happens as was specified.
But Chris, could you explain the difference between this decommissioning plan and the one that we used? This is a more robust, let's put it this way.
I am not prepared to answer that, to tell you the truth. As far as the Moeller decommissioning plan, Walker's Creek, the Alexander on Route 11, and essentially,
We're not crediting the salvage
that
material.
we did. I can speak to that. So we did not, as far as providing salvage value as credit to the decommissioning, if you will, we did include that practice in the Walker's Creek solar facility. But since that time, the staff and even I think the board level discussions, if you will, that's just something that as staff we would not suggest supporting that in the future. It's just one more thing for staff to keep up with. There's RFPs that would be associated with the salvage value. There's a whole lot of things that go in salvage value. With that being said, there obviously is salvage value, and I relayed this to Dan this afternoon. I do think I think it's an important factor to have in the decommissioning agreement, because then what the potential salvage value is. But it's also good to know for the board that we are not giving credit towards that value. Such as, let's say, round numbers, the decommissioning value is $400,000 and there's a $75,000 credit given. The decommissioning agreement, when drafted prior to the building permit or prior to the building permit being issued, would be for the full value, not for the math with that credit.
Any other questions, comments, discussion?
I'm sorry, I guess I have one more for Ms. Upman. Speaking of the values in the decommissioning plan, do we have any ability to work on that number? If just using random numbers, if someone says it's $100,000 to decommission this site, and we have a different thought, is there any ability to have discussion there, or because it's engineer stamp, that's what it is?
It's actually not sealed, but I think the county would have the opportunity, if we wanted, to have it reviewed by an engineer to advise on whether we believe that the numbers are correct or close to correct.
Thank you. All right, David, Mr. Chairman, I apologize.
There might be more questions after.
For now, I'm done. Yeah.
Okay. All right, at this point, we will open up the public hearing.
There's no one signed up on this sheet, but they're obviously as recognized in the citizen comments. I'll go down that list and then we'll recognize anyone. I think the first person that was on board was Miss Wood via Zoom.
Hi, should I go ahead?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. First off, I just want to make a point that the public hearing notice in the News Gazette said that the owners were a Douglas and Joan Bradford, which is not true. So I'm not sure this is even a valid meeting. But now I'm going to go on. I have done some research trying to find out who USS Hilltop Solar. Are you hearing me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I didn't have the picture of you. I just have my name in front of me. Who are the chief executives of USS Hilltop Solar? I just would like to know more about this company. And what are their expectations for the power they're going to generate based on our current weather patterns? Also, I think the board should, first of all, before approving this, they should should get comments from other communities where a USS Hilltop or US Solar has put these solar farms in. I think they mentioned several at the beginning, Mr. Sapler did. I would get comments from those communities. And then I think we need to find out what USS Hilltop Solar's thoughts are with respect to environmental impacts on soil, water, wildlife, and our weather patterns. And this is a main question as a taxpayer. Who is going to be responsible for the disposal of used solar panels? Because that's a very expensive thing, I think. How much water is going to be consumed in running these solar panels? Where are these solar panels being built? And finally, I just want to point out that on the map that they showed, 27.7 acres of this property was deemed to be farmland of statewide importance. And we're going to turn it over and burn it up. So those are my comments, and I appreciate your giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Wood.
Mhm.
Who's next, Mr. Slade?
Yes, and I apologize. I meant to say this before for the record. Prior to the meeting, we received comments from Mr. Roy and Connie Powell. And also we received comments from a Don and Janine Jeffer. As stated, we do not read these comments. We no longer have the practice of reading these comments to the record, but I did want to recognize that we have received written comments and we pass those along to the Board of Supervisors. With that, Ms. Wood was up.
They have been sent to the Board of Supervisors,
we
and they are part of your record.
Yes, that's correct. Apologize. The next speaker is Norma Jeffer.
Please come forward, state your name, ask your district, and try to keep your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Hi, my name is Norma Jeffer. Don and Jeannie Jeffer are my relatives, my brother. We have the farm, Rockbridge Farm, directly across the river from where this project is proposed. And when my brother started talking about it, that's when I became interested and I started researching about solar farms. And I Googled impact on the environment and was distressed with what I was reading. And because I am an avid hunter, I fish. My daughter was married at the bridge, Natural Bridge. Our family, our property is under a conservation easement. And so we are all about preserving the wildlife, the tourism in the area. That's what we're worried about. And we're also concerned about the view, what it's going to look like, our beautiful farm, what it's going to look like across the river, because it is just across the river. I've sat there in my father's stand for years looking at that very piece of property that they're going to cover with solar panels. So my concern is about the environment, about the wildlife and runoff, and what's going to be done with the panels when they no longer work, and the impact it has on the community, because Lexington and Natural Bridge is all about nature. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Jeffer.
Next up is Jeanette Jeffer. Yes, ma'am. And following Ms. Jeffer, it's Judy Clark.
Please state your name for the record, please.
My name is Jeanette Jeffer, and I own 297 acres across the river directly from this proposed site for the solar panels. And I have many reasons for opposing. Part of them obviously are personal, but many of them are community-based. I don't know if you have time to listen, but I feel like it's going to affect the tourism in our area, campgrounds, state parks, Appalachian Trail. All of those things are very popular for us and very important. Also, I have a concern about the guidelines that I believe that I have learned that there are no guidelines for establishing such enormous construction projects in this area. Guidelines for the construction, the maintenance, and the disposal. I saw all of the list of suggestions for making good choices for them, for our area, but I didn't see anything about what if they didn't adhere. Was there any punishment or any consequence for not adhering to what we would expect of them at this point, at this time, while we were listening to their presentation today? I think that's all I need to cover right now, except I would like, one more thing. Alexander's Orchard project up the road. I noticed it coming down Route 11 yesterday. I am now living in Richmond in a senior community. I sold part of my property to my son, and I have no buildings on my property. And we also own almost 2 miles of the not the river, but the land. Give me the word, someone.
Waterfront, riverfront.
Waterfront, yes. And we enjoy the river so much, and we see so many people enjoying it, and that has brought a lot of pleasure to us as a family. That Alexander's Orchard is really very ugly, very ugly. And I think that's all I need to say today.
Thank you, Ms. Jeffers. Appreciate your comment.
Miss Judy Clark.
Hello, I'm Judy Clark. I'm from the South River District. I came with notes. I threw them all out. I agree with what these people are saying. I'm living this, and I'm sorry, it's emotional for me. I live where they want to put the volcano energy site in Rayfield. It's around where our house, it surrounds our house on 3 sides. The Planning Commission heard everything that you all are hearing, plus about 100% more of facts about these solar farms or solar industries and the industrial size. And they wondered where the tax base, who's paying, and there's no taxes from these people, yet us and our neighbors surrounding them pay taxes. And they're probably getting off cheaper than what we are. But based on what these folks said, I made a couple notes. One is, since we've lived with the fire on the mountain, my question is, we're getting the majority, or I'm sure they are, and I'd like to know where they're getting their solar panels from, because right now there's a glut of panels coming out of China. So their production, they can't keep up with. So they're cutting corners. What is their quality control like? What is it like when we get those panels here? Are they built as they should be, or have they cut corners and they're dangerous? What happens when there's a fire at these solar facilities? Do our volunteer fire departments know how to fight them? Do they have the equipment to fight them? And with most of these being near the Christian school right across the road from this project, Fairfield School across from the Alexanders, what's going to happen when all this pollution goes into the air and poisons our kids? We don't know any of this stuff. We don't. If we do know where they're coming from, I can guarantee they're not coming from the US. My other comment is, I ask that you trust your planning commission. They have exercised all due diligence prior to their voting. Like I said, they heard it all. They're smart people. They can make good decisions. And you come in here and you add this or add that. Why didn't they have that to begin with when they did their first presentation? I would suggest having everything up front before you vote on anything, because you don't know what they'll slip in. You don't know what they'll do with the decommissioning plan. And by the time they're decommissioned, they're probably going to be labeled as hazardous waste by that point. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Ms. Clark.
That's everyone that signed up at this time.
Is there, oh, hold on. Is there anyone online that wishes to address the board?
Don't see any hands raised.
Okay. All right. For those who didn't have the opportunity to sign up, please come up one by one, state your name, your magisterial district, and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Sir, I believe you raised your hand up front here.
Lee Merrill. I'm a long-term resident of the county, but I'm currently house sitting in Lexington. I'm generally supportive of the eventual approval of this application with all the conditions that seem to have been put out on the table and need to be developed. Take your time and get those accomplished. These are not comments other than my own, but they do come from observing all the needs for solar renewable energy. We live in the sunniest county in Western Virginia. That's NOAA statistics. It's about 4 hours more clear sky isolation per year than in Botetourt or in Augusta. So when developers look at the mapping, they will say, well, this is a perfectly good place to attempt to put one. I think the conditions that you need to make sure are sufficient are that there's no net increase of runoff, which I think is probably handled by your soil erosion control, that the grading required, which may be reduced from the 6% if someone looks at the plan and figures that out, but that the topsoil be replaced after the grading so that the topsoils are maintained within the grading plans. Perhaps a replacement to 20 inches of depth would be an encouragement for them to redesign so that they don't work on some of those areas. Maintain the non-invasive native vegetation. I think the point was made that these are two different classes of plants, that you probably ought to beef up the decommissioning. There's nothing that ever comes in on budget. Beef it up by 10% if you think that that's appropriate. It's going to cost you a fair amount of money to get a second opinion, but you've got the power to beef up the decommissioning expectations from the developer. It seems to be a decent, well-designed project. The screening seems to be sufficient. I don't see it in detail with what was presented here tonight. And that it seems to respect the ecology of the land, and I don't believe is a threat to the runoff, the soils, the neighbors in terms of their real estate, the ability of people to enjoy going through that. I know the land. I've seen those properties for decades. And I have no reservation to think that this is a decent project if you can get all the conditions that you think may be necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, who's next? Yes, please come forward. State your name, magisterial district. Try to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hi, my name's Teresa Bullock. I live in Natural Bridge. I'm actually Mr. Ned's neighbor. My wife and I, we live right across the street I'm sorry, I'm really nervous. let me start by saying I've been really conflicted about this whole situation because my presentation to the last board was about Mr. Ned having the right to do with his land what he wants to do. And knowing him as a friend, and hopefully we'll still be able to call him one after this, but that he's been through hard times lately and wanting to support him and what he's chosen to do with his land. But I also have to protect my family and what we are doing with our land, which is going through hard times ourselves. We run an Airbnb out of our house. It is marketed as a serene and peaceful place. One of the reasons we bought the house was for the beautiful view up on Lone Tree Hill on Mr. Ned's land, and then bordered right in between the river and his land. Our neighbors are cows, and we absolutely love it. And looking at the proposal for Mr. Scaler's company, the road to build up to the equipment pad will be 500 feet from our house. So that is what our guests will be looking at for 4 to 6 months. They will be looking at a construction site basically. And then after that, until the vegetation reaches maturity 15 years from now, they'll be looking at solar panels. Aside from that, the southeast corner of the solar panel proposed sign is about, based on their schematics, is about 150 feet from our front door. So I think it's closer to our house than it is to Mr. Ned's actually. And that's just, I think it will affect our business dramatically. So that's our personal plea as to why we are against it. And we ask you to vote against it. The other thing I found interesting was I talked to Mr. Scaler after the last meeting, and he gave me his business card, and I have not had time to reach out to him, but also in the year that they've been talking to Mr. Ned and in the month and a half since we last talked and they knew my objections, they have not reached out to us at all. So when they talk about coming into our community and asking us to trust them and saying that they will abide by this contract that they've set forth, I don't have any reason to trust them at this moment. They have something called a subscription service. This is what I've been able to find out online because I haven't talked to them. But they're based in, as they said, I think Minnesota, Illinois, and Colorado. The subscription services, you sign up to support renewable energy, and from the energy that's generated from the solar farms, like what will be on Mr. Ned's property, then you get a break in your electric bill back home in Minnesota, Illinois, or Colorado. I tried to see if I could sign up for it. They put me on a wait list. Even though I'm 150 feet from this potential property, I would not be able to benefit from the renewable energy that I'm seeing right in front of my house. Yeah. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak? Yeah, please come forward, state your name, Astro District.
We do have one back online.
Okay, we'll circle back here in a second. Go right in, man.
Cynthia Sucater. I'm from the South River District. I have a couple things just to talk about. Generally, the energy from these solar panels is probably going into the Dominion power grid. And it's my understanding that most of the people down there have bark, so they won't be getting any of the benefit from the electricity. The other thing we talk about all the time with these is replacing the topsoil. And if you listen to Steve Hart talk last meeting at the Planning Commission meeting, he said it takes about 50 years to reestablish topsoil, something that we don't think about. The other thing is there was a tax attorney who talked at the Planning Commission meeting that says 30 years down the road, if these solar panels really do continue to provide electricity, if there's a problem with them, we don't know who's going to own them because this solar company will have passed on, and Dominion probably isn't going to want to replace them or repair them, or if there's damage or if they're leaking, we don't have any go-to in that situation. The last thing is I was privileged to go to the working meetings of the Planning Commission to start setting up guidelines or an ordinance for these kind of projects. And so they're working on it, but it won't be done until January or February. So my recommendation is we wait, deny this for right now, or defer it, or however you want to put it, but deny the special exception permit, at least until the Planning committee can get their ordinance or their guidelines together. Because they're working on it very hard, trying to deal with all these concerns that Mr. Lewis has or that have been mentioned. But thank you anyway.
Ma'am, would you come forward just one second? Would you repeat your name for us, please?
Cynthia Sukater, Kator.
Thank you. All right, online, who we have?
You've already heard from Ms. Wood. Mike Smith.
All right, Mr. Smith, can you hear us?
Mr. Smith, gonna need to unmute yourself. Can you hear us, Mr. Smith?
All right, we will come back to that. Anyone else present didn't have the opportunity to sign up wishing to address the board? Yes, please come forward, state your name, Astro District.
My name is Alan Stout, and I'm a resident of Lexington. And actually live off behind Spencer's. We were present at the Planning Commission's hearings, and I was greatly impressed with the people. I mean, there's like a room full of 40-something people and pouring their hearts out, trying to protect their property, their farms. And we've been coming to Shenandoah Valley for probably the last 40 years. And we decided to move here 2 years ago and bought a home with a very panoramic view. And the reason we're here and so interested in this is because there's going to be a proposal to put one of these solar power plants. Not really, they use the term farm to kind of soften it, but they're really power plants next to our property. And so that's coming. So there's already been one approved over in Fairfield, and I'm hoping that you've all seen that one. We drove by it again Saturday, going to church, and it is absolutely grievous. The land has been, and what I hear being said here is so inaccurate. The land over there, if you want to go and see what the effect on the soil is, it's totally raped, and it's huge piles of dirt, and they didn't have a place to take it, so they just got it piled up on the property there. And you can see this from Interstate 81. And it's right across from an elementary school. So you have a real negative impact, because some of the negative impacts from solar is magnetic electromagnetic radiation. It puts off, these panels put this off, and the equipment. And that is proven healthcare wise to be detrimental to a person's health and to wildlife, actually killing wildlife. So you have that negative going on. You have the water runoff being affected. You have heat pockets created by these power plants. You have such a dramatic devaluation of property that's around it. I mean, people can't even sell their property once these power plants come into place. And it's just ugly. I mean, we have a wonderful view. You can imagine looking out and seeing 40, 50 acres of these panels that do put off enormous glare. And at night, by the way, there is a noise put out by the panels, which is a problem for people that live anywhere near that. And the other thing is, there's really no value. I mean, they're offering this community no value whatsoever. you know, and you're here to protect us, the people that live here, you know, in the community. You know, I like the old thing, you know, do unto others as you would have them do to you. Well, I don't think anybody here would want to have a solar power plant next to your property. I mean, to be honest, you wouldn't want that. And once they get one in, which they got in Fairfield now, I've been told by farmers around that live around me that they're bombarded all the time by these solar companies, you know, wanting to put, you know, buy, you know, lease their property.
Mr. Stout, your 3 minutes are up. Could you wrap your comments up there,
Yeah.
please?
I just hope that you will. There is no benefit to the community, you know, and if even if it did give me, which by the way, they were asked last time, was there any benefit? And it was determined that there was just no benefit whatsoever. Okay. And even if my power bill went down, I still wouldn't want it. If my power bill went up, that'd be okay. Okay. So I just think that it's not good for us.
Thank you. Thank you for your
Thank
comments.
you. Spell your last name, sir.
STOUT Stout.
Thank you. Thanks, sir.
I believe Mr. Smith is now unmuted.
Mr. Smith, can you hear us? Mr. Smith? We're unable to hear.
You might try to promote him as a panelist. I know we tried that last time. Or maybe allowed to talk.
I did that. No, he's.
He's still muted.
Okay, Mr. Smith, now you are muted again.
How's that?
There you go.
All right.
There we are.
State
Thanks.
your name, Astro District, and try to limit your comments 3 minutes, please.
Okay, Max Smith, Buffalo District. Two things here. I am adjoining landowner of that property on the south side, and also as president of the Rockbridge County Farm Bureau. The Farm Bureau stance on solar panels is that we're not opposed to solar panels on good farmland. Now, you do understand I say good farmland, not necessarily prime farmland, because obviously the county, in my opinion, is using soil types as being good, as the definition of good farmland. Where being a farmer myself, it's not soil types that I look at on good farmland. I look at contours, levelness of the ground, location to the amount of rainfall and so forth. I do farm the land across the river, Jeffers. I can tell you that is some very high productive farmland that we farm over there. Over 200 bushel corn comes off that ground. And that's because not the soil types, it's because of the water that flows, the rain that we have along the James River. So that's material. I also heard them talk about cattle fence around this project. If you approve it, please make sure that it's some kind of a defined definition of what a cattle fence is. It could be a 2-strand electric, 4-strand barbed wire. I mean, it really ought to be a chain link fence around it, not a cattle fence. If you look at some of the slides when they talk about the vegetation covering the facility there, now a lot of that vegetation that is there is on VDOT's right of way. It's not on Mr. Barford's land. So I think that's deceiving to take pictures from the Gilmer's Mill Road and looking up there at it and say, oh, it's going to be covered up. Well, it's not going to be covered up if VDOT was to happen to cut out the vegetation. So that's just my process. And my gut feeling is that I don't know. I'm torn between the fact that it is farmland. It could be really productive farmland because of the contours of the land and where it's located, and the fact that the Farm Bureau says, you know, I just really think this farmland preservation of farmland is critical to our future, for our national security. In all the Farm Bureau meetings I go to, which I'm at right now in Virginia Beach at the annual meeting, this solar subject is the top subject that we talk about. It's the opposition to it, just the amount of farmland that these things are taking up. And so that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Appreciate your comment.
Right.
Is there anyone else present that didn't have the opportunity to? Please come forward, ma'am. Please state your name, Mass Shore District.
My name's Tracy Hip. I live in Natural Bridge Station. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. My wife Teresa just spoke, and I agree with everything she said. I think she said it far better than I can. I guess just to be succinct, I bought our property 2 years ago, March. It abuts Mr. Crawford's property. This is planned for our front yard. It's what our entire house faces. I sunk every penny I have into this property because of the scenic beauty and because of how the land is zoned around me, with the understanding and expectation that nothing like this would happen. I would never have bought to live next to a solar field, would have never done it. And I don't want to live next to a solar field. And with the neighbors that I've spoken to about this, there's a lot of concern. Like, nobody's excited about this project. So I would ask that no exceptions are made to the permit and that you consider the residents and the community's concerns. And I thank you for your time and for listening.
All right, anyone else? Anyone online?
I'm not sure whether Ms. Wood has her hand up again or that was just from the first time that just hasn't.
All right. Board, is there any board discussion before we exit public hearing here?
I have nothing more to say other than what I said before, which is I don't feel I've had time to investigate the documents that I need to investigate to ameliorate some of the concerns that have been spoken. I think the decommissioning plan and the site grading plan are two of the most important pieces here, which help to answer some questions. I would prefer to continue the public hearing such that I can have time for further time to review those documents in more detail and potentially work on some conditions that Mr. Sapler said is a possibility to work with us and find some ground, pun intended. That's my thought.
Mr. Slayton, just a quick question for you. I mean, I know it's been mentioned, it's something that came to my mind as well. Obviously, that area of the county is has a lot of tourist attractions, the bridge, state park, safari park, the river, the campgrounds and everything like that. Is there, in your estimation, is there any impact to those industries that are already there?
There's as far as my knowledge, there's one campground of the ones that the potential uses you listed. There's one campground, it's actually two campgrounds associated with the river, the Orson campground, and then the canoe liveries also. But as far as the impact on the other ones, in my opinion, I would say it's negligible because of view shed concerns. That's a lot. We obviously, through these solar projects, it's common concern to say loss of farmland and view shed concerns. So if you look at the photo simulations from, say, Route 11, the corridor from the bridge, those type of things, I don't think this project is visible from those other areas you mentioned.
All right, so the board has two options. We can either close the public hearing, in which case you either need to make a decision now or within 30 days. Keep in mind that we only have one meeting in December 11th. There will not be a second meeting. Or you can continue the public hearing to our December 11th meeting to do more research, due diligence, whatever you would like. And at the point of closing it, then you would have 30 days from the closing of the public hearing. So it could push into our January 8th meeting for final decision. So as a board as a whole, what would you like to do?
Well, I'd like to, first of all, say there's several good aspects to what was presented, but there are a lot that is missing that I'd like to find out. If we get more information about the company, find out where the panels are made. What they're willing to change as far as screening and whatnot. How, 6%, what is that what can we do with that to make sure there's no runoff? So I would support leaving the public hearing open till the next meeting so that we can make sure we've done our due diligence and have all the information. There's been some very good points made, and I think there've been some points made that might not be factual either. There might be some misconceptions. So give us time to clear any of those up.
Is there any way to, I mean, to the point, the runoff is very important to me as well. There's no way to put language that we mentioned, the no net runoff, in the conditional, is to design it so there is no net runoff.
One, just like the other projects, one common condition we utilize in most special exceptions is approval contingent upon X, Y, and Z. In this case, I think the draft conditions have Virginia Department of Transportation and erosion and sediment control. So they would have to adhere to the erosion and sediment control, stormwater management measures. But above and beyond that, we could, I think Jonathan Griffin, the stormwater management administrator, would be imperative that conversation as well.
And I believe, just to verify, because I think some of these things were, I believe I read that the testing on these panels, the panels are tested, what they're made of, what the runoff is. I mean, and I believe that they even gave where they were purchased, or am I wrong? Did I make this up?
I mean, we do have and I may let Mr. Dan speak to this, as we have a proposed condition that was talked about during the work session as far as a list of the conditions that could be utilized for solar projects, and one does deal with the panel specification and composition. It doesn't go as far as where it was manufactured,
but the composition of them, and yes. I believe they were tested for runoff and for whatever they would emit. That was part of the process. Am I wrong? Would you like to answer that question for me? Is that all right?
And Chris, while he's coming up, was the advertisement for this public?
I'm uncertain. I will have to go look at that. I will say that on October 19th, 2023, the property did transfer from essentially Mr. Doug, and I have it here somewhere, Doug E. Brawford, personally, I should say, formerly Douglas E. and Joan E. Brawford trustees. With that being said, I will have to look at it. I'm not, I'm unaware of any typos, but it could be. Could
they could check that.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, I mean, much to everyone's chagrin in this room, these panels are manufactured in China, right? I mean, that's a problem. That's from a manufacturing standpoint. And from a hazardous materials standpoint, this was raised at the last meeting. So one of the things that the state of Connecticut goes through is what I provided in my my notes here, which is a toxicity characteristic leaching procedure. So they actually, the state of Connecticut, and I provided the board with this information because I'm actually working on one in Connecticut too, and I thought this would behoove you as well. That our opinion.
I'm reading the room, and you have got to speak into that mic.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. So the panel manufacturer has to go in the state of Connecticut, needs to go through a toxicity characteristic leaching procedure. And so essentially what leaching is when, say, a panel breaks and, some weather happens over time, does the, what is made up of the panel leach into the ground. And our panel manufacturer was forced to go through this leaching procedure, and it was deemed that if this were to occur, that the panels were non-hazardous, and they passed the leaching procedure test as the state of Connecticut required them to. So for what that's worth, I thought it would provide the board with that information.
And your buffer area includes the right of way from VDOT. So would you move your buffer back beyond that so all your stuff doesn't get?
Sorry, the buffer area. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if
The
the VDOT right of way, is it actually in your buffer area? And if it is, would you move your buffer area up above the right of way?
yeah, we're more than willing to move the buffer area wherever.
Your buffer area is shown on the private property. I will confirm
Okay,
that.
so it's
Okay,
VDOT's
now,
right of way.
that was not to downplay Mr. Smith's comment of some of the existing vegetation could intermingle between the fence line. And of course, property lines are a game of inches, but all plantings, VDOT would not allow the plantings without landscaping agreements
Just
and a whole
trying to
lot of things.
straighten facts
Absolutely.
from
So I
myths,
can,
you know?
I can confirm the proposed plantings are on the private property.
Mr. Sapper, I had one more question that we might get just headed off here. To Dr. Lyons' question of the height of the panels, I think when he asked you, I think you said 7
to 8 feet. Yeah.
7 to 8 feet, right?
Yes, sir.
But I read somewhere 15 maximum height. Is that, am I wrong?
I can answer that. That's just a common draft condition we've utilized in the past.
I see. So this application is 7 to 8 feet, but we're not going to have more than 15 is the general thought. Okay, thank you.
Can we, I mean, I guess we could change it on this
Absolutely.
application, right?
All right, I believe,
10 feet.
Mr. Slayton, did you have something? You
Yes, I would just like to say, we can certainly continue the public hearing to the December 11th. The newspaper ads would be due tomorrow at 10 a.m. That's perfectly fine for us to get accomplished, obviously, but I would like to that will give us essentially a week to answer. The board docs obviously would be posted on the 7th. And so we would be receiving that information so the public could get it as well as the Board of Supervisors in a week time frame. Just want to put that out. I mean, I don't think it's we do have the ability to extend the public hearing to the first January meeting, just like we would to do it to the 11th meeting, I should say. Just want y'all to be aware of the time frame, the somewhat tight time frame when we post board docs in a manner that we obviously do.
And not to, discount anyone's questions or anything like that, but we're in the public hearing. I would ask that the supervisors direct your questions to Mr. Slayton. You can compile a list with the answers to those questions and provide all of us at our next, the board docs or next meeting.
Well, y'all can certainly get that, and of course, we'll take all the questions that we've gotten this evening and respond accordingly. But there's additional questions that y'all that y'all think of in the future. Obviously, just get with us and we can follow up accordingly. Yes, sir.
But I think your question, are we advertising for the December meeting?
Yeah, no, we would. I think we are required to say we are continuing this public hearing to a date certain. With that being said, that date certain could certainly be the December 11th meeting. But with that being said, that would be a week turnaround time essentially to get this information on board docs, which is a tight
so we could go past December 11th, just to make sure I understand. Is that correct?
Yes. So obviously, we're not having a December 25th meeting, which would have been the regular scheduled one. So the following meeting would be January 8th.
Do you feel like that you need more time to adequately address the concerns?
I'm uncertain on that, to tell you the truth. I think of what we've heard this evening potentially, but it is a fairly quick time frame. And Dan's definitely going to be, Mr. Sappler, excuse me, is definitely going to be part of that answer to your question as far as revising plans, verifying what landscaping's on VDOT right of way and what's not.
What's
the
native,
existing,
what's not,
I should say, the existing fence line, VDOT right of way, that type of thing.
And Ms. Huffman, if we were to continue the public hearing to January 8th to provide time with holidays and everything like that, we don't have to discuss it during our December 11th meeting, correct? We would just basically skip that meeting and discuss it again on January 8th.
That's correct.
If you feel like you need more time.
I think Mr. Casper should be part of that answer as well. I mean, as far as his turnaround time on some of we've all been present as far as the nature of the questions. We know somewhat of what information we'll have to generate, but whether that can be done, we can advertise it for sure, and we could do it on the 13th. I'm sorry, the 11th. But with that being said, turn the floor back over to Mr. Sapler.
Yes, thank you. I just want to reiterate that we're more than willing to work with every single one of you. So I will be as responsive as possible. If you guys want to, delay the public hearing, we're constructing this in everyone's benefit here. Again, I'll be as responsive as possible. I don't know what type of answer you're looking for.
Is it feasible to do it within the December timeframe?
Why do we want to rush?
Okay.
I apologize.
I'd rather have too much time than not enough time to get here in December and say, well, I need this, and well, we didn't have time to get it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's myself. I want to get it right, but I want the information correct and in a timely manner, but I don't want to have people feel like they're rushed and putting off other parts of their responsibilities. And usually when you rush things, you tend to screw them up. Maybe not in your all cases, but in mine.
But we could continue, I mean, not that it would be great. I guess we don't want to do this 3 times.
So in order to continue the public hearing, just for y'all knowledge, we have to do the newspaper ads, the certified mail to the property owner, certified mail to the adjacent property owners, I should say, and then keep the zoning action pending.
Mr. Day, are you okay
As far as the
continuing the
date,
public hearing
is a date?
to January?
Yes, that's why.
Are you okay with
I
January?
would prefer that, sir.
Are you okay with January? Are you okay continuing the
Oh,
meeting?
for sure. That part I am.
All
Yeah.
right, so what we will do is we will continue the public hearing till our January 8th meeting. So it gives you plenty of time to advertise and adjust the letters and mailings you need to do. Again, board, you need to, any concerns, any questions, any comments, you need to address them to Mr. Slayton as quickly as possible so that he can work with Mr. Southler to address our concerns when they come back before us.
Is this your first facility in Virginia?
Yes, it is.
Okay. What's the next closest place? Since we got all this time.
Yeah, I mean, we're building one
Tonight,
we're developing so we've constructed again like 85 to 90 of these in Minneapolis. That's kind of where
too cold.
Yeah.
Well,
But we're developing everywhere.
But you could get us a list so we could reach out to some of these people in these other places.
Yeah, sure. Just whatever requests you
Okay,
have,
great.
please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sapp.
Mr. Chairman, I think you need to take a vote on this.
Need to take a vote to continue the public hearing.
Motion to continue,
All right,
yes.
so is there a motion to continue the public hearing until January 8th?
I've been the thorn in your side, so I will make the motion.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes as well.
Thank you.
All right.
Chairman,
I was working under the memory that the board has a 1.5% tax on the power produced, and that there's equipment here. And I think the community would like to know how you're taxing this facility so that there is a contribution to the community.
Yeah. Appreciate your comments. Mr. Slayton can provide us that information with the rest of it.
To Lee's point, I think that if we can, there were things that were maybe need to be addressed, and that is one of them, so that the public does know where we're coming with our decision, how we get about our decision. And part of that is when people say things, whether that's accurate or not accurate, it would be nice to be able to respond at the next meeting. And I know that.
I can certainly include that information in the agenda item for the upcoming continued public hearing, excuse me. Yes.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one more comment in regards to these. I don't want it lost that I certainly am not unaware of the property rights of the landowner who has that land and has a right to, make a decision on what they want to do with their land. Just didn't want that.
I think it's a very important
I
aspect.
feel strongly about that as well. So that's all part of the balance here.
And, that the property owner, I understand the adjoining property owners have a concern about their property. The property owner paying taxes on that property also has a concern and should have the ability to use their property as they see fit. I know it was discussed earlier about farmers. I've talked to several farmers about this, and they're split. Some see it as a good way for farmers to make additional income, and some see it as a waste of farm land. So it's a lot of opinions out there. We just need to shift through it and come up with the best idea that we possibly can. All right.
Appreciate that.
For board comments, Mr. Lewis, do you have anything?
I've probably used all my time this evening, sir.
You did. Mr. Day. Ms. Ayers.
No, sir.
Mr. Lyons.
Mr. Lewis used all my time too.
Mr. Suter, you have anything?
No, sir.
Ms. Huffman?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank everyone for attending. Please be careful going home. Is there a motion to adjourn? And a second.
Second.
All right, Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Ms. Ayers.
Yes.
Mr. Day. And Chair votes yes as well.